Alright, so we're going to start things off by taking these two top screws off that is part of the actual housing. And I'm going to flip it back over here. There's 3 more screws, and that's really all that holds on this whole assembly. As you can see, the back screw is the brackets broke off, and that's why it's in here. And that's pretty much all. I don't know how you break that off. Maybe they dropped it or got it caught on something and try to pry it off. I'm not sure. But yeah, so now I'm just removing the cover, 4 screws that hold this whole cover on, and I'll just remove those 4 screws, and I'll keep the screws with the cover. It lets me know that those screws go to this cover. Alright, I'm going to remove this bracket here. This bracket kind of just holds things in place without riding against where the moving parts are. And it just keeps the housing kind of in order. And then I'm taking off this first screw closest to it. It's actually threaded into the housing. And you have to remove a few of the screws to be able to bring the blades. You'll see in a minute where I bring the blades out or up a little bit to be able to slide the housing right out of there. So you don't have to take the blades completely off or anything like that. I just kind of loosen them with an 8mm and a 227, I say. Torx bit or steel Torx bit. It could be a 225. I can't remember. I don't ever look at the measurement. I have a tool that's from Stihl that you can see on my drill. And you don't need a power tool to do all this. I do all this with power tools just because I have to be more efficient, because again, I'm trying to turn on as much equipment as possible. And so I take off, I think, 3 of them. And just keep in mind where the hardware goes, because if you don't know, then you may be screwed when you put it back together. But there's those little washers, and there's one that goes in between the blades and the actual blade housing. And then there's one that goes on like the screw head. So there's 2 different washers, and you just have to make sure that you put them on each side. So I got the housing off there, and this is a pretty messy job, and I don't want to get grease all over my power tool or all over my tools, and I try to stay as organized as possible. There's a giant washer here. I'm trying to pull it off. This guy's over here telling me about some customer needs this right now, and I'm gonna do it for him. But I use a magnet and I pull that. You can see that big washer. Pull it off. He's still talking to me, saying the customer's waiting for us. That's what I'm gonna do right now. Actually, really quick for him. So, like I was saying, the customer was waiting on that, and they had donuts as payment, so went ahead and knocked that out for him. I'm pointing there to a snap ring. There's a snap ring in there that you have to remove, and then if you have a press, that's something that I don't use. I use a vise for almost everything, because I don't need anything crazy as far as like how much weight. And so I take this snap ring off here, and I use like I said, I use a vise for everything. I don't use a press because it's not that crazy amount of pressure, and that's why God invented the hammer. So you'll see in a bit how I get this gear out of here, but sometimes these clips they're greased up, so they're kind of hard to bite onto. But a good pair of snap ring pliers, and you can take that right off. That's all that's on there is a snap ring, and then we'll knock the gear out of there. Alright, so here we are. We're at my vise, and again, if you had a press, you could press it right out. This is how I've always done it. I stick it in a vise. I have a giant vise as well. There's a few in the shop, but I use mine. This is a kind of a personal one that I use, and it gets the job done. I think it's a 4-inch or 5-inch vise, and it's Irwin, I believe, and it's kind of good. It's got kind of an anvil back to it, but it's a good vise. And so as you can see, I have a punch here. I'm gonna punch this thing out of there, and you'll see it pop out the bottom. And we're gonna reuse this. The drum and the gears, it was totally fine. And that's all there is. You can see I pointed out the broken off ear to that housing, and we are going to you're going to see me press the new one in. So the new housing, I'm getting it out of the bag right now. I think I showed the part number, I can't remember, but yeah, this is the new fresh housing. I'm going to compare it to the other one. As you can see, the ear is broke off on the right side there, and out with the old, in with the new. So I like to spray some penetrating fluid on there to help it slide in better, as you can see. And once again, if you have a press, it'll probably be way easier, but then you run the risk of breaking it because it's some aluminum. I dropped my hammer because someone's messing my workbench and it's kind of sliding all my stuff off, but no big deal. So we're gonna press this thing in there, and I'm kind of getting it kind of set in there first, and I'm gonna use my vise, and I'm just gonna use it as if it's a press.
What up, man?
And I'm gonna go off of noise. It kind of makes a clicking noise after each time it's turning, and that's what I'm listening to here. And once I hear that last click, then I know it's good. And there you go. Bearing, it slid right into the bearing. I can see the groove. So like I was saying, it slid right into the groove, or I could see the groove on the gear. And now I'm just putting the snap ring back on here, so you can see. Okay, so here's the part number that you're going to be using, or that I'm using, for this HS56, and make sure we reinstall that washer. Okay, there's a plug, a grease plug. This is a service plug where you should be greasing it. You can buy these tubes that thread into that hole that for the cap that I just put on, and I'm just using some Red Armor, some Echo gearbox grease. And like I said, you can buy Stihl sells the grease for it, and it threads into that cap that I put on, and you can just pump the grease into it, and just a couple once a month, squirt some grease into that bad boy. So I'm just greasing everything up, making sure everything's nice and greased. And I'm gonna put more grease in a minute, but so you just slide this in here, this housing in between the two, and align the pin, and it'll just fall right into place. They're not timed or anything, so you don't have to worry about timing them or anything because they run off that cam. You can see there's kind of two offsetting cams there that kind of time it for you. So I'm just turning it around, rotating it, making sure nothing's binding, and making sure everything's nice and smooth, and it is. So someone's talking to me again. I'm the shop manager, so people are always coming up to me and talking to me when I make my videos, but it's a shop. So we're gonna thread in the one that threads into the body, and then the other two will be like a through bolt and nut on the end. So I don't thread it in all the way though, as you can see, because you have to slide these washers in between. So you can see I'm shoving them in between the housing and the blades, and then sliding the bolt through with the nut on the top. So I'll just do that, rinse and repeat a couple more times here. It's pretty straightforward. But I do quite a few of these, and not really for a broken housing. For a broken housing, I do it mostly because that pin that you saw sticking up, that was protruding through the gears, that pin breaks off, and it goes right through the plastic cover. That pin right there, you can see sticking up in the middle between the cams, and that pin breaks off very often. And so the housing is like $50 maybe. So I'm just pumping some grease all through this thing and making sure it's all nice and greased. And like I said, I replace a lot of these housings. So I'm just going to probably put this bracket back on. Yep. Put the bracket on. This it just kind of sits in place and keeps the housing from being pushed into the gears. So we'll put this housing on here, clean all the old and grimy grease off, slide that bad boy in place. It'll eventually get greased up from when it's being ran because this is the bottom end we're working on. We'll put the cover back on. 2 of the screws are going to be tapped, and you'll see I'll tap those. These back 2 here, yep. Front 2 are threaded in to the housing. So when they're sharpening a blade. So we're going to put the cover on here. Boom. Turn it, make sure nothing's binding. Nice and smooth, as you can see. And that's pretty much it. It's pretty much done. It's put the 5 screws in and you're good to go. But you're gonna see I run into a problem here. Some of the pieces of where it was broke off fell into the clutch assembly, and it was making my blades bind up. So you'll see me. I'll have to remove this again and clean out the metal that was in the clutch. It didn't do any damage or anything, but it definitely didn't help anything.
Yeah.
So now we're gonna fire this thing up. So let's see, the blades are not moving as they should. They're kind of seizing up. Oh no, I take that back. They're actually, it looks like it's seizing up, but it's not. See how they won't, the machine won't idle. So I'm like, it's not idling high, but I'm just gonna turn it down and see. And I turn it down and I'm like, no, that's not it. There's something wrong. So I'm thinking there's something with the clutch. Usually when the blades won't stop moving like this, it's usually an issue with the clutch. So I'm gonna take it apart one more time here. I'm gonna check the clutch. And it's really simple. I mean, it took 5 minutes, so. It's very rare that this happens too. Like, again, I don't replace the housings for broken off like this. I usually replace them trying to magnetically take out that screw, but it was stuck in there. But it'll fall out when I turn it upside down here. But again, I was just checking the again, this is not a common issue, so I'm looking at everything and I'm like, yeah, my housing's good, so it's something with the clutch. And I look in here, and lo and behold, there's some debris. There it is. That's a piece of the housing, the old housing, and you can't see it in this video, but there's some like little sleeves or like female ports. That kind of align this housing to the body.
Nothing else, yeah.
And somehow they broke off, so, and it fell in there, and we're gonna throw it back together and give it another rip. So 3 screws here. Steel screws are shaped very well. Very good quality to wear. You don't have to hand thread really any of them in. Kind of get a feel for them and send them home. So put the top 2 screws in here. Bada bing, bada boom. And let's see this time. Perfect. Now I'm gonna turn the idle back up because it was set really low because I thought that was it was an issue with these guys who were trying to fix it themselves and turned it all too high. And as you can see, she's ready to rip. So that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed the video. We'll catch you guys next time.